On today's Touch Base in Seoul, we're going to be talking about an independent film that was directed and funded by the Asian American community. The film is called Happy Cleaners, and it tells the story of a Korean American family as they struggle to keep their dry cleaning business afloat in Flushing, New York. In August, the film had the honour of being screened as the closing film for the 42nd Asian American International Film Festival that took place in New York. And I'm happy to welcome the co-director of the film, Peter Lee, to our studio today. Welcome, Peter.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's great to have you here with us, and I'm really interested and fascinated by the film. It's called Happy Cleaners, as we said. Can you tell us a little bit more about it and what kind of story you wanted to tell?
Well, it's a working class family story. That's what I always say, from Flushing, Queens. And you could imagine, when you associate thoughts that come with working class, the struggles that comes with it, you have that. And then you have layers of, this is an immigrant family, a Korean American family. And so with that said, here is a family just trying to make it every day while trying to lay roots in this new country. And ultimately, how do they overcome these struggles as a family unit? That's the kind of story we wanted to tell.
You're a budding filmmaker, and this is your first feature film. Why this story? Why did you want to tell this story? Why was it important for you to tell it?
I think growing up in the States, a lot of us feel like there's never a story that truly represents us, and I think in a lot of ways, it's kind of damaging to a lot of children's psyche when you never see yourself represented. And ultimately, there are Asian American faces in media, but very few, and never in a very meaningful way. And then you tend to look at Korean media because that's people exactly that look like you, but at the end of the day, it's not your story either. So where is our story? It started with that. So from there, it had to be this story because we wanted to tell a story that really showed this is what we came from. This is our roots. And when we were able to share this story, I wanted this story to validate a lot of the other Korean Americans and their experience be just represented. And I think from the reactions that we've been getting from different folks who've seen the film, I think we got there. It was very positive. And so, that's why we had to tell the story.
I mean, even before the film was made, I think you might have struck a chord with quite a few people as well, because you got that funding from, I believe, Asian American groups, and you had a co-director as well who you worked it together with. So that must have helped. It's never easy making an independent film.
Absolutely. I mean, I think... first of all, I have to mention Julian Kim. He's my 동네 형. He's my my partner in crime that we dreamt as kids making films together. And so it really helps when you have somebody to partner with who comes from what you came from and shares the same goals. And on top of that, we've been making short films all along, also dealing with similar themes. And we found this amazing nonprofit called KoreanAmericanStories.org. And they saw our shorts film and they realized this is the type of projects they need to fund so that more of Korean American experiences gets documented. And so with that said, I mean, it's like a partnership that are just kind of really lined up that allow us to get here to make a feature film independently without any creative compromise.
You said it's a working class family story. To give a bit more detail, the story is about a Korean American family who are running a dry cleaning business, but it's also about how, I guess, the older generation, the parents who run this dry cleaning business, how they deal with their children, how their children who are second generation immigrants, how they deal with their parents and their struggle and those kind of identity issues as well. So this story sounds like it will be relatable to many first and second generation American immigrants, and that includes myself as well. I'm second generation British Korean. How much inspiration did you take from your own life when creating this movie?
I mean, I always answer that question with it's a collective experience, really. So yes, a lot of the stories are rooted in the reality that I lived through, that Julian lived through, but also, our friends that we grew up with together in Flushing, Queens. Flushing is a very, heavily populated by Korean immigrants. And so if it's not my story, it's so and so's, family story, So if you kind of put all that together, we have our film.
Was it very much your own personal experiences, or did you go out there to find more stories about other Korean Americans, other immigrant families?
It wasn't like it wasn't like we went around looking for stories. It was just a story that we wrote, and then it came out because we knew of these stories just growing up. If it wasn't directly ours, it was so it happened to so and so. But I think, especially if you look into your own experience as well, it's very standard. Like you're an immigrant in this country. There are certain steps that everybody has to go through, regardless of what socioeconomic classes. So things like that almost served as a backbone, a very common backbone. And so you reach there for sources, and it's just kind of the story writes itself.
Unfortunately, I've not seen the film myself, which is a shame. But seeing the trailers, just seeing the snippets, I see the father and mother figure, and immediately I have flashes of my parents as well, and the kind of experiences they had growing up, raising us in the UK. So your parents must have seen this film as well now, right? Well, how did they react to it? Because I'm guessing there's a lot of them in those two characters as well.
I was really afraid, the first screening, right? But they loved it. Not just my own parents, Julian's parents, and every one of our sort of team members, their parents, and they embraced it for what it was. And for me, the biggest personal win is, being a filmmaker. It's not sort of the accepted career path that an Asian American kid goes through, right? But my mother, she's been silently, still supportive. Hasn't told me don't do it all along. But after she's seeing this film, she actually said, I give you my full blessing. I get it. I understand why you need to go down this path. And that was super meaningful.
Wow, that's a powerful statement from your parents. I mean, they must have been really touched then. I mean, they must see themselves in this film as well then.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the comment that we hear from a lot of the parents' generation. We had this screening in Flushing as well. And it's the little things like when you hear the ajumas go, "Aigo," like when they're watching the thing, because
Right.
it's hitting it.
Right.
And you hear their reactions afterwards, and they all say it's very real. It was painful that it's so real, but at the end of the day, maybe I think they also felt a little bit therapeutic as well.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about how audiences have reacted to this, other than your parents as well.
Yeah, I mean,
you said it's been shown in LA as well at
Yes.
the Asian Pacific Film Festival.
Yeah, so we've been into many cities in United States. We've been to LA, San Francisco. We're gonna go into Midwest as well. But yeah, at least from the States, all the cities that we've been to, I think the common Korean American experience, that just you get it. Like, everybody gets it. But I think there's just a deep appreciation for it because of this hunger that I mentioned earlier. In the United States, Asian Americans are so hungry for proper representation of their experiences without them ever becoming a caricature or just, somebody else writing their experiences. So I think on that note, they are just really happy to see this.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you hope this film reaches out to a wider audience as well? Because this is very Asian American experience centered. Or is it for you something like, from what I hear you saying, it sounds like almost like a love letter to the Asian American experience?
I mean, if I may, because the world is so beyond, there's more to than America, right? I hope that it is any group of folks who ever had to leave their home country and lay roots to another place. Those group of folks, I think if they can find commonality in this story, I'd be so honored. As well as fundamentally, it's a family story, though. You strip away the layers. What it comes down to is it's the mom, dad, and brother and sister, and how do they just kind of do life together. So fundamentally, that's the story. But yeah, of course, like beyond Asian American context, I would just love to be able to have an opportunity to show this to a broader audience, any immigrant group, as well as, just even if you get a little more specific, the Korean diaspora globally. How much of our experiences are similar or are they different?
Right. And interestingly, you're here in Korea now, and I understand you've done some private screenings. You've not done like a full theatre screening yet, but how has it been showing this film here in Korea, and what has been the reaction like?
Honestly, I really had low expectation only because I've heard from other veteran filmmakers who've, shown their films in Korea. Koreans are not really interested in stories about, the overseas folks. And so I just kind of took that at face value. But at least, small sample size, take it with a grain of salt. The response that we got, I'm still really riding from that high because they said it's not an immigrant story. It's just a family story. That they get it.
Right.
And for them to say that also in the current Korean cinema, these sort of very simple family stories are not told as much anymore, and they miss it, and it's refreshing to see it. It was really, really encouraging words that I've gotten. So now I have a little bit of hope that if we're able to find distribution here, perhaps we might have an opportunity to show to the Korean audience.
Right, I guess it is that interesting that intergenerational kind of the generational divide is the same here as it is in the West. It seems with these with the Korean American and Korean families. Very briefly, running out of time, but can you tell us what's next for you here? What's next for you? I understand you're making a documentary as well.
Yeah, so working filmmaker, you're always trying to jump on different projects. So I think. We're trying to finish out our film festival cycle and are looking to get distribution. But we're always writing. And if you could sort of imagine this story as maybe part one of a trilogy even, don't you want to know what happens to these next generation of Korean Americans, how they really, after they go through that, how do they take on the next work of laying down roots in this country and how they interact with sort of, mainstream America and whatnot. So I want to keep telling these type of stories, but then told from our perspective.
Wow. So we can look forward to the Peter Lee Korean American Experience trilogy coming up at some point.
Yeah.
Well, it certainly sounds fascinating. I can't wait to see the film. It's called Happy Cleaners. We've been speaking to its co-director, Peter Lee. Peter, thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.